Most of the time, if you are going to be at a dinner party and someone introduced themselves as, well, I'm a cybersecurity expert, they may not be the first person you'll want to sit next to over your hors d'oeuvres. But our guest today, Dr. Eric Cole, is actually the cybersecurity expert that you do want to talk to and that you do want to meet, because he finds a way to, appropriate to the title of the show, humanize what security means for us as individuals and for the collective. So stay tuned for this episode of Humanize Automation, where we pair security with humanization, automation, AI, and come up with some pretty good solutions. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Humanize Automation. And I have a treat for you today, as you know, because it's a double doctor day. So I'm your host, Dr. Jill Schiefelbein, and I am joined by my special guest, Dr. Eric Cole. And it's awesome when it's like, doctor. And what you all need to know beforehand is we're going to get into a little bit of, no, not a little bit, a lot of bit nerdy today, but all about nerdy and geeky on cybersecurity. And in the increasing world of AI applications and generative AI and synthetic media solutions, security becomes even more important. And what I love about Dr. Eric's work is he has a consulting company, Secure Anchor, where he really works with companies to help them understand the cybersecurity space and be safe and secure in their transactions, whether it's internally or with their customers. And I mean, this guy has geeked out on this for a while. He has served on presidential councils. He's gotten degrees in it. He's taught in it. He's been awarded like tons of awards. So in terms of who can help me be the most safe in this world, like, I'm so glad to have you with me today, Dr. Eric. Welcome to the show.
Dr. Jill, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So now that we can drop the formalities here, what I would love to hear about from you. I always like to give people the lens at which the guest is coming from, right? Like, what brought you to the point in your career where you are today that influences how you see cybersecurity in relation to automation, AI, and all the things that we are using today?
So really, it's all come about as I've started my career off on the offensive side. So I began at the CIA in 1990. And I always like putting it in context because we tend to forget how far we've come. The World Wide Web wasn't invented until 92. Google as a company wasn't founded until 1997. Do you realize the first iPhone didn't come out until 2008? So like 1990 was very early on. And I was focused on how do you secure and protect on the internet. And the reality is there's no way to prove something secure. There's no way to prove that something can be locked down. So the way you do it is by trying to break in. So I began my career as a professional hacker, where basically I focused on vulnerabilities, weaknesses. How do you find patterns? Like when I go in and I look at a computer system, I sort of step back and say, okay, not what are the strengths? What are the good things? How does it work or how does it function? Because that's all taken care of normally in testing. When people deploy and create new applications, all they're focused on is the features, the functionality. Does it provide what the users want? But very rarely do we test, verify, or validate what are the weaknesses or the exposures? How could somebody exploit or take advantage of it? So I've sort of always was trained as a hacker. I think like a hacker. I behave like a hacker. The good news is I also have a ton of morals and ethics. So I've always been a white hat hacker. So my friends always sort of refer to me as like the cyber Luke Skywalker, where I try to get drawn to the dark side, right? But I always stay on the light side. And I also have a heart of gold. I love helping people. I love helping humanity. So I'm sort of at a point now where I've sort of merged in it with AI. It's sort of the perfect storm for what I know and what I do is really looking at, okay, what are weaknesses in how we behave and operate that when we start creating digital twins, when we start taking all of our data and thoughts and giving it to a computer so it can help and think like us, everyone focuses on the benefit and the value. Like, oh, I can have a digital twin that can take care of mundane tasks, that can actually interface or handle things that I don't need to do. So I can focus on what I really love. But I'm all about stepping back and saying, okay, what are the weaknesses that we're creating that could be exploited? What are the weaknesses that are out there? And the reality is having a digital twin can be amazing. But what we forget is with AI, it's all about the data set. The more data you have, the more accurate the AI is. So the more information it has about you. So we're almost in this weird place where we're addicted to our digital twin. We're addicted to whether it's the new Grok 3 or ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever our favorite AI tool is. We love having it smarter and better. So we keep giving it more information and more data. But there's a point where if we give it too much information or too much data where it can think and act like us, when do we get to the point where it becomes to replace us or potentially make us obsolete? And then how can somebody exploit those weaknesses? Because now, if I wanted to try to steal your information, trying to hack you is pretty hard because I'm sure you're a smart person. You have a lot of security in place. You know the dangers that are out there. But your digital twin probably knows information about you, probably has personally identifiable information, potentially knows passwords or could figure out your passwords, potentially knows your bank accounts. And guess what? Your digital twin is not as smart as you on cybersecurity. It was never trained on cybersecurity. So now if I wanted to steal your identity or exploit your bank account, instead of targeting you or your family, what if I start targeting your digital twin? What if I start exploiting your digital twin? So that's sort of my whole career for the last 30 years is all about understanding weaknesses and vulnerabilities and then using them as enablers to balance that with functionality to be able to make security not a roadblock, not an obstacle, but cybersecurity that can help you and improve your life.
And I think it's so important what you say about, the data angle of it, right? And to contextualize for everybody, when, Eric's saying digital twin can manifest in many different ways in the cyberspace. You have digital twins that can serve as actual digital embodiments of physical spaces, simulations, etc. You have digital twins that can serve as avatars for that human. You could have digital twins that serve as agents for you that are trained bots that can answer on your behalf. But all of these instances require a substantive amount of data for them to operate well so that it's essentially worth your while as a business leader or a business owner to invest the time in training these machines. And what I like about what you said so much is really when you're looking at it, that you started as a hacker, we have to know how to keep our stuff safe. And where is this line between what is a potential benefit to us and what is a potential risk to us? And when that risk outweighs the benefit, we need to recalibrate and figure out how to level that playing field a little more. And I know you do a lot of work in consulting, helping companies understand that balance.
Exactly. And the big thing I always do is cybersecurity has sort of gotten to me a bad rap over the years is everyone thinks of us as the people that say no. Everyone thinks, oh, you're the one that's going to make our life more difficult. You're going to make things more complex. You're going to say I can't do things. And it's funny, whenever I walk into a boardroom or I work with executives or even meet people on the street and they hear I do cybersecurity, they're like, okay, you're going to give me all this bad news. You're going to say I can't do things. And I actually have a different twist. My thing is if cyber's done correctly, it should actually be an enhancement. It should be an enabler that makes your life better. And you sort of touched on it, but I want to sort of put the foundation on it. When it really comes down to its cybersecurity, it's not a binary decision. It's not a yes or no. It's customized for each individual. And it really comes down to two simple questions. What is the value and benefit you're getting from this? And what is the weakness that you can, or the harm that you can suffer? And then the question is this: is the benefit worth the weakness, or can we do things to make the benefit stronger than the weakness? And the problem is most people, and we see this happening now with AI, are only doing this on the benefit. What is the value and benefit? I mean, what can I get out of this? And a real quick story is one of my real good friends, he does a lot of motivational work. For confidentiality reasons, I won't say his name, but you've probably heard him or seen him out there. And he calls me up a couple of weeks ago. He's like, Eric, check out this digital twin that I created. You got to use this because I'm trying to help so many people. I want to help so many people. He goes, can you take a look at it? So I go in and I do an intervention with this digital twin, and it's asking me questions and it's digging deeper, and it's amazing. I feel like I'm talking to this individual. So then I call him back and he's like, Eric, what do you think? And I'm like, dude, this is amazing. I felt like I was talking to you. I felt like I was in a session with you where your personality came through. It was acting like you. It had the humor. It interacted with you. I said, so it was amazing. You put this out to the world and you can help so many people. So many more people can have their issues solved and can live a better life. I then said, but here's the question. I don't need you anymore. Now that I have this tool, I said, I don't need to call you on the phone. Me and him usually talk once or twice a month when I have problems or he has issues. But I'm like, now if I have your digital twin and I don't have to call you, I can actually just go in and ask it questions. What is that going to do to our personal relationship? Are we now not going to talk every month or every quarter? And now is it basically a life where you and me as physical humans become obsolete? And our digital twins are basically living on our behalf. And that's the concern I have of where's the line between AI helping and augmenting and allowing us to build a legacy versus replacing us and making us obsolete.
And see, it's interesting from different perspectives. And so what I love about hosting the show is you get so many different perspectives. For me, I say, okay, if his digital twin is used in so many very different contexts, but in the instance here of having a digital personality that you can interact with that's fed and trained on this person's knowledge base, I would argue that great. If that solves the problems that you would normally talk about on the phone, now you can use that monthly call to get to know each other as humans better, to get to know different personal elements. And so my strong belief is not about replacement. It's replacing things that allow us then to spend that same amount of time on true human connection, on true human relationships. If I can solve base level problems by talking to a machine, and if I can feel positive about that interaction, then I've saved that time, and our time spent together can be used for higher functioning and higher level, high brain IQ type tasks. And that's what really excites me about it, is because, oh, great, I don't have to answer the same question 10 million times. And the people who are going to hire me to answer a base question, they're not my main client base anyway. It's really, how can I leverage my knowledge to free up more of my time to do what makes me human? And so it's interesting, the different takes on it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's the trick, is retraining us. Because like you said, the way I initially thought about it, and it's more of a techie geeky thinking, is now that we have these AI agents, I don't need to talk to him anymore, which is the wrong way. I like your way. What I should have been saying is, hey, we still need to talk, but now we can talk about cooler stuff and we don't have to talk about the mundane stuff. So I love that reframing that you just did with me, where you're looking at it as, hey, we still need to have our calls, but we can have higher quality conversations. It's not a replacement. It's an augmentation. And I think that's really the key that people need to understand.
For sure. And then on the flip side of that is, it also, I believe, makes you reevaluate the relationships that you have in your life. So is a relationship with this person, for example, one that is based solely on Q&A, on professional level Q&A factors, or is there a deeper relationship there? And if there is, or if both parties are invested in that, now you have time to foster that more. But you know what? Some relationships, for example, medical. There are so many things in the medical space now where you can get, let's say going into a doctor's appointment, you need to get, for like scalability, 100% of the way to a solution, right? As we all know, that solution may or may not be perfect, but let's say we have 100% of the way to the solution. Now, depending on who your provider is, you may get 25% of the way there with just the intake forms that you fill out. But what if we could leverage it so that you get 50 to 70% of the way there, so that time you actually spend in front of that physician is now 30% of that task, but 100% of that designated time. Those relationships, the understanding of the human, of the care needed, I would argue then really, enhances everyone's experience. The problem will be, from my perspective, and I'd love to hear your take on this, Eric, is if we're like, oh, well, we can get 70% of the way there, which means we can cut out 70% of the appointment time and then just keep mass producing. And I think that is not the point. It is, we can now provide 100% care, but making that 30% really, really important. So maybe even now we're getting to 110, 120, 130 on that solution.
Yep. And I agree that that's the right approach. What concerns me is just sort of the counter to it is we've almost got to a point where this is an addiction. These are not devices that help our lives. We are addicted to them. We cannot live without them. And I sort of compare the difference when you look at addiction to like a car. We're not addicted to a car. We need a car and we use a car, but we're not addicted to it. We can do without it. On the other hand, if you look at like substances like alcohol, those we're truly addicted to. And my question is, has our technology in our phones become more like the car or more like the alcohol? And I would argue it's more like the alcohol where we can't live without it. You go into most adults and you take away their technology, their cell phone for 2 hours, they're losing their mind. I mean, they're freaking out. One thing I have at my house, and there's some people that won't actually come to my house or go to dinner with me, but my rule is if you're coming to my house for dinner or we're going to a restaurant for dinner, you leave your cell phone in the car. If you pull out your cell phone, I'm going to leave because I don't want to compete with your cell phone. I can't compete with your cell phone. If you want to spend time with me, I want quality time, and I'm going to do the same. And it's funny, there are a lot of people that won't do that. Just imagine how different the world would be is if dinner tables and restaurants didn't allow technology, didn't allow cell phones. So my concern with where you were getting at is if we get these AI so good that we can get most of our questions answered by the doctor, I'm concerned that a lot of people won't go to the doctor. They'll go in and they're so addicted to their device and so addicted to getting the answers from their AI engines that they're going to stop talking to doctors. And what I'm concerned is we're going to use the human element where now we talk less and less to humans and more to computers. And now if we get to a point where you're spending 70% of your time and your best friend is your computer or your AI engine and not humans, that's to me when we start to get into a problematic world where we're dehumanizing and just essentially turning ourselves into computers.
And I mean, and in some ways that's already started, right? With the echo chambers that exist on social media, the perceived anonymity that we really don't have anonymity, but people, you know, their personality, what they would say to you in person, face to face, is very different than what they would say online. And you see these things happening. I think what's really interesting about it is, you know, on the flip side, and this is what's great, there's always multiple ways to look at any issue, and not one is necessarily right or wrong, but it just highlights how you need different patterns of thinking and different areas of expertise to come at a situation the same way. Because like the medical thing, so you're afraid people aren't going to go to doctors, and then you think of, well, what percentage of people who don't go to doctors already would now if they felt more comfortable interacting with AI? Like there is a section of the population whose healthcare would increase because of this. Yep. And there is a section whose would decline, and there's trade-offs for every solution. And so when you're looking at all these things, it's like, does it humanize something or does it dehumanize something? At what point is that tipping point? You know, go Malcolm Gladwell there. What is that tipping point in kind of that humanization, dehumanization battle? I need to write an article making that analogy, actually. That would be a good one. But really looking at that. But then it's also getting back to really your lens and area of expertise is at what level does the security of our data from an individual perspective and then as an organizational perspective, like what does that matter? Where does that weigh in?
Exactly. And the thing that sort of concerns me a lot is right now, our privacy is really based on us securing this hard drive. We're careful. If somebody wants to get my personal data, get my information, they have to get it from me. And I feel that I'm trained really well. Most of us are on understanding and assessing threats. But now, if we take this and download it to a computer that doesn't have the same level of protection and security, and one of the analogies I love giving, and it just hit me the other day, is I get up Saturday morning, and every Saturday morning I do my brainstorming and planning for the week. And one of the first things I do when I'm sort of having my protein shake is I check my bank account. And when I go in and check my bank account, I have to enter in my password. It gives me a 2-factor authentication. I get a notification because I happen to be at a hotel that said, you're going from a new location. Is this approved? And I have to go through all these checks and balances for it to verify and validate it's me, for somebody to get access just to my bank account. That this isn't my life. This is just a bank account, a number. And there's all those security measures. And then 5 minutes later, I say, oh, I want to brainstorm about an idea. I want to sort of chat with myself because I think the person who knows you better, the smartest person in the world that knows all the answers is you. So I love digital twins. Like me and my AI agent, sort of we chat all the time. We solve world hunger. It's amazing. But I go in and I open up my AI tool and I start asking it questions and it's thinking like me and acting like me. And I pause for a moment and go, wait a second. I didn't enter in a password. I didn't get two-factor authentication. I didn't get email notification. It just trusted that it was me because it was on the device. So now I'm thinking if somebody can get access to that device or access to that information, they can't access my bank account because it's going to require password, two-factor, and everything else. But they could access me. They could access my thoughts and my ideas. And I'm just sitting there. Why don't we have the same level of security around our thoughts and ideas that we do around our bank account? So then I immediately went in, and now I'm a cybersecurity guy. I immediately went in and I looked at the settings, and sure enough, you could add in two-factor. You can add in authentication and verification. So I turned it all on. But the reality is in almost everything, including these AI agents, the security is there, but it's turned off by default. And if we're not turning it on and we're not protecting it the same way we're protecting our bank accounts, that's when it becomes problematic. That's when it becomes a huge issue because now if somebody can access our information, here's the problem. Once your data is exposed, you can't ever get it back. It's not like a car where there's a single instance of it. If somebody steals your car, you can recover it. Your data is copied and replicated. Once it's out there in digital form, once somebody has access to it, they have it for the rest of their lives. And the scary part is there's a lot of people, over 60% of Americans because of the OPM breach, where their social security numbers are public for the rest of their lives. Think about living your life where the one piece of private information that the government can track you on is now public for the next 30, 40, or 50 years. And we're just not grasping and understanding just that exposure factor. Mm-hmm. And to me, when it comes to AI, it's just being exponentially multiplied, but we're forgetting about security. And to me, by the time you remember it, is going to be too little too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting because a lot of people are very frustrated with, multi-factor authentication and everything. They're like, I just want to log in. I just want to get it. But it's, again, thinking of the cascading impacts that can come from it. And I think when we, on my second company, on Render, when we work with people on producing their digital likeness, right? Their avatar clones of themselves, we have gobs of stuff that we do. Like two-factor authentication is the baseline. We have your vocal assets stored in one server. We have your physical inference assets served in another server. Like there's different locations for it. So if someone really wanted to get to it, you have to access it from multiple servers, which exponentially complicates obviously that task. But what we also have is before you even get to pair your account with your likeness, you have to video authenticate in real time. And the technology matches and maps faces and matches and maps vocal tones. So it's like when we set this up, because it was like security is going to be huge and people are going to freak out. What most people don't realize is that if I have even 10 seconds of your voice anywhere on the internet and a single image of you, you can be cloned already. And most people, when you think of business owners, business leaders, that stuff's out there. So for me, when I'm training my Dr. Jill bot, as I call her, right? I train her on the books I've written, the articles, podcasts, that type of thing. For me, it's something that I am not having other people interact with at this point in time. It is for me to have as a sparring partner with myself is what I call it. Like, I love the way you phrased it too. You want to brainstorm with yourself. But then also, if I need to answer a question, the efficiency for me is I can get emails from people, get questions answered, plug those questions into my agent, and boom, get responses very, very fast that require very little editing because it's trained completely on my knowledge base. But I am very careful Nothing that is not publicly available goes into training that model. And that is one thing that people don't often think about. And they say to me, well, Jill, I'd like to do this, but, client data needs to be secure. I'm like, yes. And you can redact identifiable information from your client data before putting it in there and still leverage these tools. But you have to be smart with what you are inputting into that system.
No, and you are making me so happy to hear this, because I will tell you the way you operate and the way you operate your business, you're a unicorn. That is not the norm.
Good to know.
Yeah. Like when I talk to most businesses that are playing in the AI space, and I talk about what you just mentioned, where, okay, do you have separation of data on your data store? So if one server gets compromised, it can't access it. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. Like they're putting all the data together. And when you talk about two-factor or others, they're like, oh no, that's an inconvenience. That's a bother. And what I always say to them, I'm like, yeah, putting in two-factor or doing face recognition, that's an inconvenience. It's going to take 5 seconds of your time. But it's a real inconvenience? If your life gets stolen. It's a real inconvenience if your identity gets stolen. It's a real inconvenience if your bank account gets wiped out. And so many people are not thinking the way you're thinking, where you have to go in and protect it. And then the other thing, I love what you said, that I wish would be the motto that everyone follows, but very people don't, is if it's going in your AI, your Dr. Jill, brainstorming partner, it needs to be public data. And so many people are not following that rule. Like even a couple of my friends that give me some of their AI models, I'm working with it and I'm asking it unique questions they weren't expecting. And it's giving personal information and personal data. They trained it on personal things, yet they're making it public. And I think that's the piece that people miss, is if it has personal data, you have to keep it personal. If it has public data, you can give it public, but those lines are being crossed where people are putting private data into systems that they're making public. And I think that's the line when you cross that things become really dangerous.
Yeah. So I have 5 pragmatics on the usage of generative AI. These are my axioms, my key guiding principles. I do talks on it, whatever. And one of them is that when you are looking at building solutions, you have to first build guardrails around what will be effective for your business and for the human interaction on it. And then I say around fear. So for me, it's always looking at what is the benefit, the humanization benefit, what is the benefit, the efficiency, et cetera. And then go on what if the fear side, I'm not putting us against each other, whatever, but more or less the cyber, the security of this data. Because for me, it's if you approach it from a security standpoint first, just like you say, when you walk into a room, people are like, oh, I can't do anything. But no, cybersecurity experts want you to be able to do the things you want to do, but you need to have clarity on what that goal is you want to achieve. What's the human experience you want to create? What's a business metric you need to map to? And then the cybersecurity expert helps you come up with the most secure guardrails and solution to come as close as possible to achieving the goal you want to achieve. It's a symbiotic relationship. But when people start approaching it with fear first, or oh, he's going to tell us what we can and can't do, I think you've already started to lose the battle.
Exactly. One of the things I always say is, and it's the craziest thing, but when it comes to cyberspace and technology, common sense goes out the door.
Oh
the things we would never do in the real world, what we do in cyberspace. And your analogy is perfect. If I'm building a house, there's no way I'm going to build a house without having a blueprint in which all the electricity and everything is certified and tested by an electrician. I'm not going to go in and run my own electricity and not do a fuse box and not do any of that, because the probability of a fire or an accident is so great that we would never even think about it. We're not even going to begin to design a house unless we had a blueprint approved by an electrician. And we're not going to move our family in until city inspectors come and verify and validate. We have a clear plan because we know electricity is risky. So we have a way to minimize the risk. But like you said, it drives everything. It's the leader that's focusing. We don't do it at the end. We don't go in and say, let's wait to have a fire and then we'll have the inspectors come in. Yet, if you look at most people, how they're living their life online and how they're using AI, it's all about no blueprint, no inspector, no checks or balances. Let's wait till we get hacked. Let's wait till we get our identity stolen. Let's wait till our child gets cyberbullied and has severe mental issues, and then we'll deal with cybersecurity. And that's the issue. It's too little too late. So just like you said, well, what I'm trying to do is raise awareness to get people to go, let's step back. Let's put maybe AI on pause for a week or two. And let's say, what is the security that needs to be in place? What is the security measures that we need to have around it? And what is our strategy? Do we want to have just public information? Do we want to have private information? And just spending a little time, which it sounds like is exactly what your company does, of let's plan it and think through it. Let's design it correctly and add security in before we start using it. Then all of a sudden it becomes this huge enabler. But so many people now are hooked on this drug of AI. They're downloading all these tools, dumping all their data in it, and not thinking about security until there's a problem or a breach.
And I think it's so important. Like we, on the render side, I'm one of 3 business partners, and the other 2 are exceptional in this space. And it really came down to this is the bare minimum at the start. Like we need to pass every security check out there for global companies, GDPR, like all the different rules that go out. We need to make sure that we're set for that. And that was also the expectation we set with our customers. Like, yes, it's going to take a little longer. I mean, that's my thing, customer experience. We communicate why this is. I'm like, yes, it is going to take a little while longer to get you up and running on our platform. But I think you would agree that the security of your digital assets is worth taking that time. And I've never had anyone push back and say, oh, no, not, no, it's not worth it at all. But it's really hard for companies who have not done that. And then all of a sudden, people get used to using, whatever app it is. And then all of a sudden, MFA, multi-factor authentication, comes on board, and you're like, why can't I get into this app as quickly? And again, it's the onus on the companies too, need to be communicating to their consumers the reasons why. Like dozens of scientific, academic and corporate studies show, like rigorously scientific validated stuff, that AI consumers are fine interacting with AI bots, agents, etc., if there is a clear why. And that why is not just tied to company profit. Right? If you can give a clear why for an action or behavior that you're having your customers take, people are generally okay getting on board with that. But people need to understand that. And so companies, people listening, you want to put in this automation or this new security system, don't just slap it on and let people figure it out. Like use it as an awesome talking point to be proactive about how, wow, we realized that we needed to do better for our customers. So here's what we've now done. Look at what you guys get, and it cost you nothing.
Yeah. It sounds so simple as to me, it comes down to what is the value and benefit? Why are you using AI? Because what I find is we've sort of developed a culture where apps and tools on the internet are impulse buys. Like I don't know if you knew, one of my rules is I try not to go food shopping when I'm hungry, because I'll be on the way home and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to make a little pasta for myself, because I'm often by myself. So I go and I'm to the store. Okay, I'm going to get a little pasta, a little cheese, a little sauce, a little meat, and make some great pasta. But I'm hungry. And guess what? I walk past that counter and I'm like, oh, you know something? I need some Krispy Kreme donuts. I mean, my life will not be complete without it. Now, if they were in the back of the store and I didn't pass them, I wouldn't even think Krispy Kreme. Oh, but then, as I'm checking out, I'm like, you know something? Life wouldn't be complete without a Snickers bar. I mean, that is what's missing from my life right now. And the next thing I know, I get home and I actually do this. I'm unpacking and I'm laughing at myself going, dude, what were you thinking? And the reality is I wasn't. And that's what happens now is we have turned apps into impulse buys. Like most people, their apps on their phones, they have 50, 60 apps. If you went through it with them and said, why do you have that app? What are you using that app for? They have no clue. Yet most people don't realize free is the most dangerous thing. Free is not free. When you download a free app, it's tracking your location. It's tracking your microphone, your cameras, and all those things. And I love doing this at events. I ask for a volunteer and they know what I'm doing. So I'm not like trying to get them in trouble. And I put their phone on the screen and I go to settings, location.
Yep.
And we look at all their apps that are tracking and they are blown away. There's never a person that isn't shocked at everything that's being tracked, is because we've done it as impulse buys. And to me, a lot of people are downloading AI and using it as an impulse buy. Oh, it's cool. It's great. It's fun. And they're not stepping back going, okay, what is the value and benefit? What is the risk? What can I get out of it? And I think you're right. If we just spent 5 minutes before we downloaded an app, before we used AI and said, let's just write down the goals. What is our objectives? What are our targets? And then let's design a plan. We would be great. But the problem is AI and apps have turned into impulse buys. And when you're doing impulse, security and logic go out the door, and you're driven purely by desire. And that's what gets you in more trouble than anything else.
It's funny, and I know we need to stop wrapping up here, but I wanted to share this story because it directly relates to what you said. So, you and I both speak, you're on your cybersecurity, cyberspace angle, me on, humanizing automation, AI, that type of thing. And I went to a conference just this last week. I was speaking at a conference, and the first session, I do a keynote and a workshop combo. The first session was on my 5 pragmatics, right? These 5 guidelines for how you should start looking bigger level at your AI, not making it about the tool, making it about the bigger picture, right? The things that you just said. What's the risk? What's the benefit? What's the value? Where does it fit in? That type of thing. And then I go to the workshop and I emphasize again, one of my key points, which is when you are wanting to build true strategy, think of the human first, the business goal second, and the tool or technology third. But what most people do is they think about the tool first. And so I'm teaching this workshop in the middle of it. It's like, well, what tool do you recommend? What tool do you think is the best AI tool out there? I said, did you not hear the keynote? And exactly what I just said. And I laugh at it and people laugh in the room. And I said, and I'm not trying to pick on you because here's the reality. For the last couple of years, companies have asked me to come in and just give these tool sets. And you know how much it moved the needle? Hardly at all, because none of these things were ingrained into a bigger picture strategy that had the customer experience, the company culture, the existing data infrastructure, and the systems in place. We're at the point now where AI is not a shiny new toy, even though a lot of people think it is. It can fix something, because if you don't have your data infrastructure in place, you don't have, to your point, Eric, security in place, all of these different things, it's not going to matter what this tool can do because you're not even prepared to use it. It's like giving someone a $5,000, $10,000, racing cycle, right? There you go. But they've never ridden a bike before. They have the best possible tool out there, but they have no clue how to use it right. So you got to know how to use it right. And for the goal that you're trying to achieve, before you start smacking and slapping tools on top of your tech stack, that then convolute the security that you already have in place.
Yeah. I love that. And it just shows, how human we are and how addicted we are. But I love that where you just told them for 30 minutes, human business need. And then the first question is, so what tool should I use? It's like, really? Did that just happen? Exactly.
No, that's not the point. In fairness, most of the audience, you turn it around so you laugh at it, but it's just the time we're in. And I love kind of that we're addicted to the tool, and the tool is not the magic. The tool is a facilitator of the magic you've already put in place. And we really have to remember that. So as we wrap up this conversation, Eric, I think we could probably talk for hours, if not days, on so many different topics. One of the things that I love to ask is, what is one funny, ironic that I ask it after this session, but I like to take something, if you are a tool person listening in, what is one tool or technology that you have found very intriguing lately, and what benefit is it providing?
So to me, the best tool that I found out there, and it's going to sound a little bizarre, it's going to sound a little crazy, but once I explain it, it'll probably make a lot of sense. My favorite tool these days is a mirror. And what I do is I sit down in the morning, usually at a table, and I put a mirror in front of me and I look myself in the eyes and I actually have a conversation with myself. It sounds weird and it sounds bizarre, but what we're doing is we're getting back to the human element, which is we're a human. We need to interact with ourselves like a human. And guess what? When I'm typing commands and I'm brainstorming with my digital twin, I'm interacting with the computer and I'm becoming more and more like the computer. What if instead of asking your AI digital twin, how should I solve this problem? What if you looked in the mirror and asked yourself that question? What if you actually looked in the mirror and said, Eric, I'm having this problem. How should we solve it? And actually have a discussion with yourself. And I will tell you, I know it sounds crazy. People probably want to get me mentally tested. But when I do that, my life shifts dramatically, because now, instead of spending an hour in the morning interfacing with a computer and becoming more like a computer, I'm spending an hour interfacing with probably the best human, or my best friend, which should be me. And I'm interfacing with a human now by looking in the mirror as opposed to interfacing with a computer. So I urge people, what if you spent 30 minutes a day instead of talking to your computer or talking to your digital twin, and you spent 30 minutes a day looking in a mirror and talking with another human and conversing with yourself as a human, because we're humans first, we're not computers.
No, we are absolutely human first, which is the whole point of the show. And I think, whether it's a mirror or some other type of self-medication, like I'm a big gratitude journaler, reflector in the mornings. Like that starts my day. I know a lot of people do it at night, but it starts my day, and I try to stay away from the device and everything, get the coffee, have the routine, do the morning stretches, do the journaling, get in touch with that like intrapersonal relationship. And so many people now are afraid to have those relationships with themselves, much less other people. So I like it. That is the first time I've gotten that answer on that show, Eric, and I am appreciative of it. So,
all right, excellent.
Yes. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today for this episode with Dr. Eric Cole. And I love where this conversation went in so many different places. But in summary, make sure you're checking your settings. Make sure you're thinking about cybersecurity as this holistic thing, not this thing that you have to do, but this thing that is ultimately going to protect multiple areas of your life to make it better. And I'm so grateful that you all tuned in today. And Dr. Eric, once again, thank you so much for being on Humanize Automation.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.